Welcome to another episode of Questions with Crocker with me, Dr. Crocker, and my husband, Shane.
Hey.
You always take a sip of Mountain Dew just as we start.
Because it's the heaven's nectar.
I would disagree, but we have to agree to disagree on that one. That has been an ongoing discussion between the two of us. So middle of the day on the weekend, really excited to record. And then I go into work tonight at the ER. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm an emergency veterinarian in Dallas, Texas, and we own a general practice together, another hospital, and Shane helps me run it.
And I'm not a veterinarian.
He is not a veterinarian. He is a entrepreneur, dad of the year, really good dancer, actually. People might not know that about you.
That was a long time ago.
A decent golfer.
Yes.
Oh, and he is an owner of a new vehicle. So let me just set this up. Ever since we've been married, I would say every 6 months to a year?
Probably every year. Yes.
Every year, at least on average, Shane will get a new vehicle. Now, we each have a vehicle that we use on the daily, but he started out, I don't even remember what first vehicle started this, but he started out with a vehicle and then he will trade them in and kind of always trade up. And so we've been doing this throughout the years. We have actually had a boat at one point in time. We had a really old Hummer. We just had a Jeep, which the kids really enjoyed the Jeep. You had a Lexus. I'm trying to think of what other ones were in there.
There was a BMW before the Jeep.
The Jeep, yes.
There's a big jacked up Suburban.
Yes.
Big monster tires.
So the funny thing is, one, I have nothing to do with this. I really don't know when he's going to do it. He'll just get the itch
It's a surprise.
Get something new. And I just sit back because we don't lose money on the vehicles. And it's like, you tell me we don't lose money.
We haven't physically had to write any checks.
He shook his head. But I know that him and my daughter have been hatching something for a while. And so I went on a trip and I came home and they're like, we have some exciting news. So tell them what you ended up getting.
You received the glorious gift of a C7 Corvette.
Okay. It is a Corvette. It's actually a pretty color. It's, I don't even know, like a orangey red
Sunrise,
color.
orange, metallic, something like that.
Yes. The only problem I have with it looks great. And actually, you took me on a date last night, which just a marital tip to everyone. It is actually really fun to get a new car because then they want to take you out more in it. So it's a good reason to go on a date. But we went out last night in it, and there's actually people taking videos of it and pictures, which was kind of funny. But it's only a 2-seater.
It is only a 2-seater.
So tell me the thought process. We are a family of 4.
I would say with the third vehicle, there really is no thought process. It's just...
It's just fun.
There's no logical anything that you can attach to a third fun vehicle.
I had my sister ask me, how do you handle the fact that he just does that and you don't know about it? And I said, well, it's much better for him to do that and trade in vehicles and not want to trade me in for new model.
This one actually probably hits the definition of a midlife crisis. Mm-hmm. Actually, I mean, if you think about it, mid-40s, Corvette.
100%.
Yeah.
I like that you sent me a video of someone, I think on YouTube, actually showing that you could fit your golf clubs in it because that
wasn't important.
That was I got to check the box that my golf clubs will actually fit in it too, which was hilarious to me. But it's fun because I think now you and Izzy kind of talk about these things together. She really wanted the Jeep. And so you found a Jeep and then you started talking to her about Corvettes and showing her the different models and colors. And then you guys kind of found this one together and went and did it. So I actually don't mind it at all because I think it's fun. And when we have people stay with us, like vet students, sometimes they need a vehicle to run around in. So it's nice to have a third vehicle. Now, this one might not be the one.
This is how I kind of justify this.
that we lend out as easily because it'd be interesting to have them cruise around in the Corvette. So probably they would use one of our
students, listen up.
If you need a place to stay, if you're going to extern, come to Dallas and you can also drive a Corvette around. No. Not the case at all. So, okay. So, that's a little update on our lives. We are actually have some time today because we don't have any sports tournaments, which is amazing.
But we just saw the schedule for travel volleyball.
Yes.
Whatever it's called. Sport. What is it? Club volleyball.
Club volleyball. I'm going to have to pick up some more shifts at the Because
Were we
apparently,
aware that we're traveling outside of the DFW area to play in tournaments?
so I knew there was maybe like 1 or 2 trips.
Well, there's 2
Okay.
outside of the DFW region.
What states are we going to?
One was in Orlando,
Okay. We can make that fun.
I guess. And the other was Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay. I've heard Kansas City is fun too. So, of course, all we're going to do is travel and then go sit in the gym for, a full day. So it'll be interesting. But yes, our kids are good at sports. So this is what happened.
I mean,
They're good enough to make the team to travel. So,
sure.
I mean, that's something for sure. Anyways, we don't have any tournaments this weekend. So we went to church this morning and we've been hanging out. And then later on tonight, I am going into work at the ER. But it's been a nice kind of relaxing weekend, which has been great. I am a little nervous to answer this question today. The premise of this podcast is that people send questions and we answer them. We are not experts in anything, but we just rely on our experience in business, me as a veterinarian for 14 years, and a little bit of a social media background to kind of get through. But we're going to talk about something very controversial today. But before we get into that, I wanted to start a new segment. Which I think I told you I already had this idea, but I want to do a segment called TikTok Tea.
No, you didn't tell me that.
Okay. So
I would have shot that down immediately.
So I'm on, TikTok, and there's always like something going on, we call it vet talk. So like veterinary medicine TikTok. You're already shaking your head at me. And I've told you about some of these things in the past, but I think it's fun. One, I get tagged in some of these things a lot, and sometimes I react, sometimes I don't. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about some of these things on here with you. So one of them is the $900 cat, which we've talked about before, but there's an update. Quick recap for anyone who doesn't follow me on social media. There is a big creator. She went to adopt a cat. They were like, well, this cat is a special breed of a cat. And some of the litter mates had some special needs. So we need to pay back the medical funds that we spent. They were $1,200 to adopt, but you're going to get a deal and we'll do $900. So at first she was shocked and she left, and then magically found that amount of money in the creator fund on TikTok and was like, I'm getting this cat. So she adopted the cat for $900. Huge uproar, huge in the veterinary space and the rescue space. Basically people saying like, you don't charge extra for different breeds, and that if there's medical expenses, that's not usually something you pass on either to the adopters. And just in general, like spending $900 on a cat for a majority of people in the world seems a little crazy and a little ridiculous. But she fell in love with the cat. So what are your like initial thoughts on this?
I don't know. I mean, you're adopting a cat. You'd think it'd be like a couple $100 to pay for adoption fees, but
yeah, normally that's what it is. It's normally a couple $100 because they cover like, basic preventative care, spay or neuter, depending on the cat. But there's also this big thing called the cat distribution center system, which is like where people find cats randomly all over the place. And so people are like going and buying a cat versus finding one. But I get it. The cat's adorable. She fell in love with it. But of course, everyone's like, okay.
I mean, do we really care if she want to buy it? It's her money.
So that's my thing is I don't care other than apparently rescues that don't charge that much. We're kind of saying it paints us in a bad light as rescues that we would like charge more for certain breeds or say that's why we're charging more. So a lot of people said, get a DNA test. Like they said it's a special breed. There's DNA tests now that you can check and you can see what breed your pet is. And I've actually had this before where people have like gotten a dog or a rescue and they're like, oh, it was this. And they want to do the genetic testing, one to screen for diseases, but also to see like what breed it is. And when it comes back, it's not always exactly what they were told the pet was. So of course she's like, I'll do the DNA test. So the update is she did it. And guess what she found?
I'm sure it's like a Walmart cat.
I don't know what a Walmart cat is.
A little
exactly.
bit of everything in there.
Okay, now I get it. So it is definitely not the breed that they said it was. And it is a mixture of a couple different things. And she loves the cat. She's had it now. The cat's come out of its shell. I mean, she's given it an amazing life. So in the end, I don't care if she has that amount of money to spend on a cat. But the whole thing is the messaging of how it went down was maybe a little shady. And I think most people should expect that they're not going to spend that if they're going to adopt a cat. I'm
disappointed if it starts popping on my TikTok now that my phone's in
now
here.
Now that we've talked about it.
We've talked about it.
Just like when we talked about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and now that's like all over your TikTok. Yeah. Okay. That's definitely what's going to happen. So the other one, real quick, is green juice. Have you heard about that?
Mm-mm.
Our TikToks are so different. So green juice is this concoction that a group of people on the internet are selling. And they claim that it will fight parvo in your dog, that it will kill a lot of different diseases. And it literally looks like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle type color that you would get injected with and turn into a superhero. It's a crazy color. And there's people that make it and they sell it. And you can go on Facebook and find the groups or on TikTok. There's no way it's legal. And they show videos of themselves injecting their dogs. Now, a lot of these people are what I would probably say backyard breeders. And they are treating their own dogs for parvo and not taking them to a veterinarian. Surprisingly, a lot of the dogs die even after they get the treatment, but they still have all the claims out there of how it saves everything. So a lot of people tagged me in this because obviously parvo is very serious. Treating your pets at home with some random injection that's green color, and actually showing videos of yourself giving your pet a medication is not something that we would want people to do and to mirror. And so a lot of people were saying react to this. And I didn't really want to give it more exposure on there by showing it and talking about it. And then they were saying the dogs are still dying. So it felt like, adding salt to the wound. But I did scroll through to kind of see what are they saying it's made of, right? And one of the people who made it said it's just a big combination of vitamins and antibiotics. So basically taking a ton of different injectables and putting them all together. Now, does that sound like a good idea?
No, there's nothing about this that sounds like a good idea.
I know. And mixing multiple medications in a syringe is not safe. And a lot of things will counteract each other or could cause big local reactions. So anyways, if you've seen anything about green juice or turtle juice, I highly recommend that you stay away from that.
Why should we have to warn people not to do this?
Okay, so that's a great question. I think 2 reasons. One, people aren't that knowledgeable in general about how fatal parvo can be. And 2, people want to save money. I mean, that's ultimately a lot of it. You can buy this vial for a little bit of money, or you can go to a vet and actually hospitalize your pet and treat it for parvo or treat it outpatient either. But it's going to be a lot more money. And so they think hey, this worked for one person, so let me use it on my own pets. And so it is a lot of misinformation. It's a little terrifying. So I just wanted to put it out there. And for those of you not on TikTok, it's also on Facebook and Instagram. So even though this is TikTok tea, I think that it's something that we need to talk about. So, well, that wasn't too bad, was it?
No, I'm sticking with my golf TikTok stuff.
Hopefully that doesn't start popping up on mine because I definitely don't want to be on Golf Talk. So in general, if you have any interesting TikTok stories or things, tag me in it. And I am going to start doing little updates on here because I think it's interesting. And it's another way to just kind of fight misinformation and talk about things going on in the internet. So let's get into our question today, our controversial question. And this is one I've actually been avoiding. I will be 100% honest. At Asha the Iggy asked, why are vets opposed to raw diets? And that was the question. So you might want to know why I've been avoiding it. And it's because in general on social media, I don't talk about raw diets. There are accounts that are very specific to fighting misinformation around food and diets and talking about nutrition in pets from people that are very well versed in that. And also maybe some people that like to cause a little controversy because it causes you to get likes and get followers, but maybe for a negative reason and not a positive one. So this is definitely something that some people are very passionate about. I don't usually touch it on social media. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, what is a raw diet? Is giving them raw chicken or cooked food?
No.
What does raw diet mean?
So raw diet, if done the way that people tell you to do on the internet, is literally going and getting raw food. So raw beef, getting raw meat, cutting it up into chunks, and just putting it on there. It's not cooking any of it. Some people just go to the grocery store, like you see them unwrapping it from that. People that do it a lot actually will get like leftovers or get meat from like an actual butcher or like meat processing place. But it is, I guess the concept behind it from people that are pro raw diet is that dogs are descendants of wolves, and they think that they eat a mainly raw diet. And they're healthier, and they, were having less issues. And so a raw diet is healthier for them. It's cleaner. It's not processed. There's not, anything else added to it. So that's kind of the people who are pro raw diet, what they say. I also think that there's a lot of feeding things that happen with pets because people eat a certain way and they feel like the way that they eat and the things that they know about the way that we process things also are similar in pets, and we know that that's not true. So there's a lot of people out there that talk about it and talk about, the positives to it and are very passionate about it and very pro. And there's a lot of people that are very against it and very negative. So we're going to talk about why some vets might be opposed to it. And I will just kind of give you the general overview. We're not going to get too in depth on nutrition. Would you ever eat a raw diet?
Personally?
Yeah.
I had carpaccio last night.
We did have beef carpaccio. It was a little different in how it's made and like how it's, done. But definitely that is considered raw. We eat sushi all the time. Sushi would be raw.
I probably want to eat raw chicken.
No, definitely wouldn't eat raw chicken, which that brings up a good point. Why would you or I not eat raw chicken?
Because you'll get disease and die.
Okay.
Or at least food poisoning.
That's one of the main reasons that people don't recommend it. There's actually been some studies that came out that said, especially if you buy it from like the grocery store, that the way it's processed and the reason that we are supposed to cook chicken is because from the handling, you can get salmonella or listeria. Now, some of these bacteria don't actually affect pets the way they affect us. Again, different GI systems react differently.
Our dog ate a whole thing of raw chicken.
He did, and I made him throw it up. But if you or I handled the raw chicken, if we were making his food and doing things and we weren't properly like washing our hands, making sure that we don't cross-contaminate, then we could also like get really sick and get diarrhea from it. So they've found that like unless you clean your bowls really well and you clean everything that you prep with really well, there is a potential, and that people that fed their pets raw diets were more likely to have salmonella and listeria in their system. So I do think there's a little bit of a correlation. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean don't feed raw diet, right? It just means if you do it, make sure you do it and you practice like food safety. But one of the bigger things that I think a lot of people focus on, and I would say this is true with any diet, is they're just not well balanced. The idea that dogs only need to eat meat and protein and they don't need any other things in their diet is misinformation.
There's people out there that have diets that maybe aren't balanced, but take like vitamins or supplements to
offset that.
100%.
And you can actually get your diet like made a certain way and well formulated, and you can talk to somebody who is well versed in it, and they can tell you like this is what you need to feed, but also these are the vitamins, minerals, and supplements you need to make sure you add. Most of them are going to tell you that the meat alone is not sufficient and adding other things, and whether you want to do that raw or not is important. But balance is very, very important. And the interesting thing is like the wolf, dog correlation. But I was reading a couple things about, they've shown by now that the DNA sequence has like changed dramatically from wolf to dog. I mean, look at like pugs, Frenchies, and bulldogs, and look at a wolf. Like obviously things have changed. And that even when wolves like eat, they also will eat like the intestines, and they will get carbs, and they will get like other things when they're eating. So I think that, again, I don't want to go like fully into the nutrition side of it, but having a balanced diet is really important, especially if you have a growing pet. If you think about it, there's actually been some kids that their parents were feeding them a certain way and they weren't getting the proper like calcium phosphorus balance when they were growing, and you can get some major issues with your joints and your bones. Very similar in like puppies. You want to make sure that they are getting what they need while they're in like fast growing phases or things are different. So That's another big one, is not well balanced. Now, if you want to feed raw and you're really passionate about it, I recommend that you consult with someone who does it and that you are actually formulating your diet where it is truly balanced. But I will tell you that's going to be expensive to do. Like feeding raw the right way is really expensive. If you think about it, like how much meat cost. And then our dog's 80 pounds. If I was feeding him a raw meat-based diet, a lot of people can't financially afford to do that the right way. So I don't want to say it's elitist, but it is a little much to kind of say everyone should do this, because it's just like you and me, and it's just like people in the world that don't have access to fresh food and they have to eat processed food. Like not everyone can do that and afford that, right? So we have to have options when it comes to feeding our pets so that everyone can be able to do that in the best way that works for them, like financially, and not feel bad about it emotionally. So that would be, the other big thing is they're not well balanced and it is costly to do it. And then the third one, which I've experienced this myself, is you can have bone perforations or issues. So a lot of times, depending on where you get your meat, there can be like small pieces of bone in there. And I had a dog in the ER that came in. He was actually only like 4 years old. He was a huge dog. He was a pointer, and he hadn't been eating, had thrown up a little bit, and I could feel like a big mass in his belly. So at first, I really thought like he had cancer or something, and he was pretty sick. So we stabilized him, took him to surgery. When I got in there, he had an abscess that was probably like this big, and his intestines were all just, if you think about like a ball of twine, like they were just wrapped up on each other because there was so much inflammation, and they had actually walled off like this big abscess and this big pus pocket. So I talked to the owners and said, he's young, it's not ideal, but the only thing I can do is try to go, if you think about 2 ends of a garden hose, take the 2 ends, cut them off, remove the infected part, and then put back together like the healthy parts that I can find. And it was that or euthanize him. And they said like, absolutely, let's try. So we did that, and I removed like almost a basketball size portion of like abscess intestine. He actually recovered great. He went home within a day and a half. And last I heard was doing really well. But after we got done, we were kind of like, what caused this? What was going on? So we cut into it, just pus poured out.
I'm sure that smelled great.
It was like, it makes me a little nauseous thinking about it. And then we searched around and we finally found there was like a very small piece of bone, like this big, and it was poking out of the intestines. And so that poked out of the intestines, and then that allowed bacteria to form, and then it just into a big abscess. So thank goodness they brought him to us. But that is another real concern, is that they will ingest bones also. And depending on the type of bone, it can cause perforation or an obstruction, and a lot of damage. Like you and I, we don't just eat, big bones because it can be tough on our intestines. So do you have any questions? Does all that kind of make sense?
No, it makes sense. I mean, what I'm hearing right now is you can feed raw diet if you want to. It could be expensive. You need to make sure it's balanced and make sure that it's good, clean food with no bones in it.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between like a raw diet and maybe like a raw meat only diet. Because a lot of people, when they say raw diet, they mean like you take chunks of meat and that's all you feed your pets.
But also what I'm hearing is like, it's not one way or the other. And it's not one extreme or the other. Like you could blend in some meat diet or balanced diet or whatever, but don't go to crazy extremes with it.
My happy medium with owners is that feeding like a cooked formula that's well balanced, and it can have more meat in it if that's what you're comfortable with. But, just cooking and preparing things properly, there's a lot of really great resources now where you can just get things shipped to you and everything's cooked and nothing's processed. There's ones that are cooked and then frozen, and then you just unfreeze them and feed them.
So what's the argument about feeding whatever out of a bag? I mean, is it because they don't think it's healthy?
That's such a... So the argument against feeding kibble would be like what they would say, right? Is it's highly processed. They worry about corn, which they say is not great and is pro-inflammatory. They worry about chicken and it being like chicken byproduct, which means that there's other pieces of the chicken in there and not just meat. But a lot of those pieces of the chicken are things that like have cartilage in them and actually have like value. So there's the biggest thing is they just don't feel like it's best. And they feel like one of the reasons that pets are, which this is not true, but that pets are getting cancer and are having issues is because people like feed this. And I think that it's really horrible for the messaging to be to a pet owner that's had their pet on a certain diet and gets cancer. Like you will go in these Facebook groups and they'll say, oh, my pet was just diagnosed with this. And people say, what are you feeding them?
Yeah.
You should feed them raw diet. They probably wouldn't have gotten cancer if you hadn't fed them this. I can't believe you fed your pet Kibble for all these years. And just that alone kind of enrages me, right? Because you have a pet owner that loves their pet and is doing the best they can for them. And now you're saying that they cause this issue. And I personally don't think pets are getting cancer more than they have before. It's just we have better diagnostics. We have better monitoring. People take their pet to the vet more. So we're catching cancer more and better. And people were more willing to treat and to follow up and do things. It's similar to other things in the world. Like we don't have like more of certain types of cancer in people, but we can find it easier. We can find it faster. There's more genetic testing and there's more options, right? If you do. So the messaging around like what you feed your pet is causing them to have these problems is an issue. And so I do think that's important for us to speak to and to support pet owners. And really having the conversation like one-on-one with a pet owner when they come bring their pet in and talking about what they're feeding, why they're feeding it, trying to understand, making sure that the pet is healthy and good status, I think it's great. But the two sides of the raw diet, the pro and the against, I mean, there's extremes.
Yeah, there's extremes of very passionate people as opposed to being understanding and listening and having real conversations. There's extremes. Yeah,
because I personally don't think that people that feed raw diet don't care about their pets. I think they really care. They just think that's best, right? Also, I don't think people that choose to feed Kibble, like our dogs are on prescription diet because he's had some bowel issues. Our cat is on prescription diet because he has urinary issues. And there's Kibble and my pets are really, really healthy. So I don't think judging people either for that being their choice and wanting to go with like well-researched, well-formulated food is bad either. So I don't really talk about it that much on social media because putting out a like 10, 15 second video, like saying like, oh, you'll get salmonella if your pet eats raw diets, to me is not productive. It's not a productive conversation starter. It feels very judgmental and it doesn't allow the space to kind of talk and learn from one another. All it does is call the trolls to your page to go after you. And then it calls all the people who want to fight them.
Canceled because of this episode.
Oh, you might get canceled. This is why I didn't want to talk about it, but I also don't want to avoid like subjects. Yeah, I don't want to avoid a question and I don't want to avoid if this person truly wants to know, right? And that's why you put this information out. There is probably someone out there that's like, you know what? I see all the controversy. Like, why do they truly not want people to feed raw? And it gets lost. The reasons get lost in the noise.
So now you have owners that are big extremes. Where do veterinarians sit into this? Are there veterinarians that have big extremes?
Mm-hmm. Huge extremes. There's a group of people that I think they would spend all day talking to people about diet and arguing with them about diet and pet owners and really feel like it's one of the most important things that they can educate pet owners on. And then there's like the middle of the road, which is me, who think it's important to talk about. It's important to do like whole health assessments on pets, which include diet and what people are feeding and talk about it. But I'm not ever going to like argue with or make an owner feel not supported because of what they're choosing to do. And then there's a large group of veterinarians that absolutely believe that you should not feed processed food and you should only, either cook for your pets or do raw diet and it should be well formulated. And, they have a lot of great information and talk a lot about balanced diets. And I think, have a lot of value in what they know. But those are some of the people that also the messaging is like, if you do these things, your pet's cancer will go away. Or if you do these things, your pet's allergies will go away. And I don't always believe that that's what we should be doing. I'm like sweating right now talking about this. I do.
Yeah, so the messaging is, if you don't like this conversation, talk to us about it. Don't blow us up and give us a bunch of hate because of it.
I think I wanted to get this message out because if there is anyone who is like me and feels like I'm the middle of the road and I want to kind of hear both sides, like, let's talk about it. And then also, if there's anyone who truly just wants to be more educated on it as a pet owner, then maybe this will help them a little bit. And I'm sure I know just from reading and seeing things on social media, I know I've missed a lot more information that people put out there. But again,
I just find it's funny that raw diet kind of, I immediately think of like religion or politics or like these polarizing, like where does raw diet fit into this polarizing effect?
I literally have a list of things that I talk about on social media and then a list of things I don't do. I don't like to client shame and like make fun of clients. I don't like to talk crap about other veterinarians and like not be supportive of, someone else that's trying to educate. And I don't talk about raw diets. So you will see some of these clips on social media, but this does not mean I'm changing my policy as a whole. I do think that there's some really great accounts out there that are veterinary accounts that Dr. Wolf is one of them, DVM, The Honest Vet, Nutrition, RVT, I think. There's a couple that are really good and have good information and are another great resource if you truly want to dive deeper and know more. But overall, this was our one raw diet episode. We'll see how it goes and what people have to say about it. And if you have anything you want to tell us, good or bad, you can reach out to us on any of the social media platforms. You can watch our episodes live on YouTube and see how much I'm sweating in this one. And if you want to send us any questions in the future, you can find us at Questions with Crocker on social media. This episode and episodes down the road are going to be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you like this type of information in this format, leave us a little review and let us know that we're doing
more
good.
Questions.
Yes, ask us some more questions.
Preferably not about raw diet.
Never again. This is the one. Like maybe once a year we'll re-release this episode and can restart the drama it might entail. But I don't want to shy away from things that are tougher. So if you have questions about anything in the veterinary space that is controversial, we're definitely happy to tackle it just in a longer format so we can definitely get our points across. You feel good about it?
Yes. And we're not nutritionists or diet
No, we're not experts and not specialists. So we appreciate you guys listening and let us know if you have any questions in the future. Thanks and have a good day.